Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming and attending the October 24th City Planning Commission meeting. My name is Katie Witry and I'll be chairing until our chair comes. First, I'd like to do roll call. Commissioner Stieg.
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Brown. Here. Commissioner Flick. Present. Commissioner Alexander.
Present.
And Commissioner Witry is present. Thank you. Let's go ahead and read the formal public hearing rules. The City Planning Commission has established certain rules governing the procedures to be followed at public hearings. Before speaking, each person shall give their name, address, and state whom he or she is representing. Proponents for the proposal will speak for a period of 10 minutes. Each speaker should be not allowed to speak more than 2 minutes. Opponents or other interested parties will speak second for a period of 15 minutes. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Proponents will be allowed a period of 6 minutes for a rebuttal. Each speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Opponents will not be allowed to rebut. No material, written photographs, reports, maps will be accepted by the commission or its staff at any time during this public hearing. And this procedure shall be followed except at such time when the proceeding officer shall, within the approval of the commission members, extend such time. Commissioners, please sign in if you haven't. And I'm looking for a motion to adopt the October 10th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Commissioner Flick will make a motion for adoption of October 10th meeting minutes. Commissioner Alexander will second.
Thank you. Please go ahead and vote. The motion passes, so we've approved the meeting minutes from October 10th. Thank you so much. We'll move on to zoning docket 072-23.
And Commissioner Witry and Commissioner Flick will recuse herself for the zoning docket.
Thank you. Please note the record.
Zoning docket 7223 is an amendment to Xavier University's institutional master plan that was approved under design review 09416 in accordance with Article 15, Section 15.5.f, changes to approved institutional master plans. The proposal would amend the IMP proposal to increase the size of Building 7, a new dormitory on the south campus of Xavier, located at 4700 Dixon Street. The original proposal for Building 7 was a 151,902 square foot building with a height of 70 feet. This modification proposes a total of 233 rooms in the dormitory and to increase the square footage of the building to 22,531 square feet, a difference of 70,629 square feet, and increase the maximum height to 80 feet, a difference of 10 feet. The staff believes the proposed conditional use and amendment to the IMP with adherence to the recommended proviso to shift the building footprint away from the adjacent residential properties, which mitigates the additional height of the dorm, are acceptable and should be approved. The building and site changes do not substantially alter the function of the initially proposed plans to build a dormitory at this location. Also, the reduction in parking spaces will not have a practical impact on the availability of off-street parking to visitors and employees of the university. Therefore, staff recommends approval of zoning docket 7223, subject to one proviso.
Thank you so much. Is there an applicant? And everyone here, if you're wanting to speak, please go ahead and fill out a comment card and place over here or right behind Mr. Kroll so that we can make sure to add you to the list. Thank you, sir. Please have your name, your address, and got 2 minutes.
Thank you. Todd Gennardo here on behalf of Xavier University. Address is 201 St. Charles Avenue, Suite 3920. We're here asking, as the staff has reported, for a amendment to the master plan to allow for additional square footage for a proposed dormitory and additional height up to a maximum of 80 feet. We would ask that, we've worked with the staff for several months now. We would ask that you accept their recommendation for approval. However, we would like to ask that the recommendation not be subject to the proviso to alter the footprint of the building. I have Dominic Willard from Manning Architects here to answer any questions related to that specific proviso. But our position is twofold. One, we're asking for an additional height of a maximum of 80 feet. We're actually going to be probably coming in closer to 77. So the size is not likely to reach 80 feet. And two, moving the building creates some additional complexities, cost, and time for what we view as a sort of a minor change, 10 feet on one side, resulting in a 0-foot setback on another side. So again, we would ask that this be approved without the proviso. However, if you're so inclined to recommend approval, only subject to the proviso, certainly Xavier University is willing to do what we can to make that work.
Would you like to speak?
Sure. So with regards to the provisos relative to the setbacks, the increased setback along South Clark Street, the proviso asked that be changed to a 0-foot setback, which in the image on the screen, you'll see there's a planting strip adjacent to the parking lot between the sidewalk and the parking lot. That would be eliminated. And we would have a 7-story facade right up against the edge of that sidewalk, which would create a unusual user experience walking down South Clark Street, having a 7-story building directly adjacent to your walk path. So we're asking that we keep those setbacks as they are. As Todd mentioned, it's not going to significantly impact the neighborhood experience, but the user experience, the pedestrian experience would be significantly impacted by that setback.
Thank you.
Thank
Is there anybody else here to speak on this matter? I would like staff to comment on the proviso.
Maybe I can comment and just kind of take a step back for context. So the issue here is that Xavier in 2016 had an institutional master plan adopted that showed a dorm coming in at 70 stories in height. The zoning allows for 70 stories in height, and then additional height is allowable with 1 additional foot for every foot of setback.
Okay.
And so the way the site design is currently is that you'll see that this is a square. It's wrapped on by zoning or residential zoning on 2 sides, and by other portions of Xavier's campus on these 2 sides. The building is kind of positioned here where it's closest to the residential structures on either side. And so, our general position is that instead of having more setback here, kind of on the interior and immediately adjacent to other campus buildings, that setback should be positioned along the edge to give some relief to the residential properties across the street. So what the proviso is saying is that instead of asking for essentially a height waiver to allow 77 or 80 feet in height, if the building gets shifted over, 7 to 10 feet, extra feet in this direction and in this direction, it allows the additional height by right, because again, there's that ability to have more height with more setback. It also gives a little bit of relief to the residential property kind of on these sides. So essentially the proviso is saying, shift this an additional 7 to 10 feet in this direction and an additional 7 to 10 feet in this direction. So it's coming up closer along the other campus buildings. Yes, that narrows the planting strip here, but if you're gonna kind of, number one, if the height's 77 rather than 80, that becomes less of an issue because you still have the ability to have 3 feet of planting strip. But just in general, it's better to have kind of that reduced green space adjacent to campus buildings rather than on the edge of the campus adjacent to residential. So that's the context behind the proviso.
Thank you. That really provides some great context for us. Appreciate it. Would you like to come address? Because we understand there's financial consequence to this as
Yes.
well, but also the university is within a residential neighborhood as well. And you've got those beautiful 1940 houses all surrounding you on these sides as well. So it's the
Yeah.
user, impact, but also the university impact and the residential impact.
Right. And with regards to the other setback, to the north, along, Drexel, that open green space is, there's a phase 2, plan for that area. So there's some additional development that Xavier would like to undertake at some point in the future. And so that's why that area has been, set back, to the degree that it has been. So it would also impact the future planning, for those future phases.
For our applicant? Commissioner Stewart?
So, so right now, we're just looking at the zero. So the impact would be for the future development, but phase 2. As you're planning is the entire square block out.
So the zero setback on South Clark, that would then impact the pedestrian experience, at the sidewalk. The other setback, increase that was requested, was to shift it further north towards Dixon. And that's where the future phase 2, planning is located. For an additional dormitory wing. So there's some, really tight, dimensions that, we have to adhere to in terms of what works within the dormitory and, setbacks from the first phase.
And Mr. Willard, the rest of the provisos were all okay?
Those were the only two, or one proviso was just to increase the setbacks on both, streets.
Yep, just to be clear, I think there's just one proviso, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and one more thing to add, the orientation of the building, as far as the main entrance being, adjacent to Dixon. We oriented the building that way purposely so that it would be away from the residential unit. So the quiet sides of the dormitory are going to be adjacent to the residential units.
Do we know if there was any neighborhood pushback on the proviso?
There was no discussion at the NPP meeting of the proviso. We had a NPP meeting. There were, I would say, approximately 15 to 20 residents that showed up. And frankly, all of them were opposed to any development on this site. The university since that time has had several other meetings. They've appointed staff to meet with the neighborhood to kind of have a liaison to discuss the process as it goes forward, from planning to development and so forth and so on. We've addressed a lot of their concerns. Some of the concerns were parking. I'll be here again real soon in front of you to discuss a parking garage on the adjacent square just next to this, which is going to increase parking and take a lot of stress off the streets. In general, the neighbors, again, are really opposed, frankly, again, to any development. We've tried to kind of, with the architects and the university, tried to, again, orient things so that it's oriented in such a way that it's facing inward. We're going to do the same thing with other projects so that this sort of creates a barrier from the residents having a day-to-day interaction with students. It would just be the back portion essentially of the building. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Commissioners, if there's no more discussion, is there a motion?
I have a question for staff.
Yes.
Staff, if we went against the staff report to change that proviso, would there be any more impacts other than moving so that doesn't have that setback?
Yeah, I mean, you would add a basically a proviso saying that the setback requirement is, or the height requirement is modified to allow the 80 feet, and no, essentially what would be happening is you'd be approving the drawings as drawn. If that answers your question.
Yes. If there are no further discussion, I'll move for staff approval for zoning docket 7223 with a change in the proviso that the drawings as rendered right now will be approved without the setback.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart. Is there a second? I'll second.
All right, and since I have a second, I think if we look at this, Xavier University is one of the leading institutions in New Orleans, and it's great to see that there's actually development taking place, which would impact the future generations of the city. So that's the reason for my motion.
There's no other discussion. Please move to vote. And I'd like to note the record that Commissioner Lunn and Commissioner Jordan are both here now to be able to be a part of our meeting. Thank you. So we have 7 yeas and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Congratulations. Yes. All right.
There you go. Okay. Next up is zoning docket item 07423.
This is a proposal to construct a Smoothie King restaurant with a drive-through facility at this location on the corner of South Carrollton and Oleander, which is within an HUMU zoning district that extends along this portion of South Carrollton. To enable that development proposal, both a zoning change to the MU1 district and a conditional use for a drive-through facility are being requested. The staff is still working through the application and request deferral to November 14th.
Do you have any cards?
Not aware.
We don't have any cards. Is there an applicant present? If not, is there any further discussion or motion? From Commission?
Move for deferral if there's no discussion. Move for deferral of zoning docket 7423 until November 14th as requested by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Stewart. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote on machines. And the zoning docket has been deferred. Wait, I think there's okay, there we go. That's fine. Yep, that's perfect. Next up is zoning docket item 07523.
A zoning docket 7523 is a request for a conditional use to permit a large child care center in the Plum Orchard neighborhood. The site is within an SRD suburban 2-family residential district where large child care centers are permitted as conditional uses. Large child care centers can accommodate 51 or more children, depending on the size of the structure in the site. The proposed child care center includes approximately 2,414 square feet of indoor play instruction area and could accommodate 48 children. The district's regulations are written with the intention that child care centers, institutions, and other non-residential uses will be on relatively large sites. This property, being a residential scaled property, does not fully comply with that intent. This increases the potential for land use impacts on surrounding properties. However, that must be balanced against the positive impact of childcare to the community. The site plan includes 6 off-street parking spaces that do not currently comply with the design requirements for commercial off-street parking areas, but the design could come into compliance with staff suggested provisos. While the applicant has submitted plans that shows sufficient, the placement of the parking spaces is inconsistent with the development standards for parking and for front yard requirements. As the site is adjacent to a vacant lot, a portion of which is to be used for the outdoor play area, the parking lot can be redesigned to accommodate parking, reduce the number of curb cuts, and create a safer drop-off environment. The applicant will also be required to provide a 6-foot solid fence around the play area adjacent to any abutting property line, which would address any adverse impacts to neighboring residential properties. Staff is recommending denial of zoning docket 7523 for conditional use to permit a large child care center. However, should the commission approve the request, staff recommends 14 provisos and 3 waivers.
Thank you. We have a couple of cards. We have an applicant card for Dana Payton.
Hello, thank you. I'm nervous.
Oh, can you just state your name and
Yes,
address? for the
Dana
record?
Payton,
Oh, and your address.
4617 Red Avenue, New Orleans. That's it.
You're good. You have 2 minutes.
I want to open this childcare center. You know, it's where I'm from. I grew up in the neighborhood as a little girl. At 5 years old, I attended a childcare center in the next block called Jets Daycare, the 4800 block of Dale Street. I just want to bring some positivity to my community. Considering what happened last week, we had a tragedy with those 3 kids that were in a fire. We need this. I feel my community needs it. We need positivity. We need children to grow up in an environment where they can thrive, and just overall, just be able to support parents and families. So I just ask that you grant us this conditional use. We will comply with everything you need us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Nick Ronald or Randall? Kendall, sorry about that.
That's all right. Thank you very much. My name is Nick Kendall. I'm the Director of Facilities with Agenda for Children, and I'm here to support this conditional use request. So research that my organization has done has found that there is a need for additional childcare centers here in New Orleans East. So this facility would help serve that particular need. So I believe that this conditional use request does meet the approval criteria for a conditional use, which I've kind of fully addressed in my letter that is included in your packet. CPC staff has recommended denial of this due to kind of the need for these 3 zoning waivers that are required as part of this request. And so those waivers are for the lot area, the lot width, as well as the side yard setback. So this is a case where we've got kind of 2 residential lots together. So this is kind of the best case scenario in these types of neighborhoods where you've got kind of a double lot. The lot is big enough to kind of accommodate, you know, the childcare center, all the outdoor play space with the modifications that the staff's recommending. You know, we would be able to accommodate all the off-street parking. So from a functional standpoint, you know, this lot is big enough to support this childcare center. The kind of need for these waivers are based on kind of the technical aspect of going from residential to a non-residential use. So there isn't any buildings being built that are too close to a property line or anything like that. So this is really kind of a more technical issue. I understand the staff's position that they've had similar requests come in and they've had to recommend denial of those requests for similar reasons. I understand the need for consistency there. I know in the recent cases that have come up that the commission has ultimately recommended approval of these requests. So I would ask the commission to kind of be consistent with its past precedent and recommend approval of these requests. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. We have one more card from Torino Claiborne.
How y'all doing? My name is Tyrone Claiborne, address 4617 Ray Avenue. I want to show support of the Child Care Center. Dana didn't mention she have like 20 to 25 years in child care education. She's an educational coach. I've been living in the neighborhood since 2006, and I done seen a change. And fortunately, the city was able to raid the neighborhood about 2 or 3 years ago and clean out the properties. So I was able to go up in there, clean it out. And ever since then, the people been coming out. They're coming out their houses. The neighborhood is starting to flourish. It's like it's a need. And I figured if they had a community-based center, the parents would be able to get more information, which is one of the things that we're lacking is information in the community. So therefore, with the help of the Child Care Center, not only would the children have a nice place to thrive and grow, but the parents will be able to get information and perhaps be able to get help. Me, myself, personally, I have a degree in psychology. I supervised a psychiatric unit many years ago, and being her partner, I know I can help parents as far as talking and dealing with daily life situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there no other comment cards? Is there any discussion or questions for the applicant or staff? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I do have a question for the applicant. If you don't mind. The deficiencies that the staff notes in its report, the licensing authorities with the state for this type of, they've had no comment on those as far as your operation being permitted to do what it needs to do within the confines of this space?
No, they have not. The
Okay.
first step is you guys.
Okay,
Once you guys approve and
Okay.
licensing and
Okay.
state fire marshal, they've already. approved
okay,
us.
so that answers my question, thanks. Oh,
Just
go
to
ahead,
add
Dan.
to that, yeah, the state doesn't have requirements for minimum lot size or lot width or any of those
Okay.
things. So this shouldn't cause any issue with the State Department of Education.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, so I'll make a motion for against staff recommendation for approval, but with the provisos and the waivers that were mentioned by staff if we should choose to go against staff recommendation.
And I'll second. Thank you, Commissioner Steve.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote our machines. The zoning docket passes. Congratulations.
Congratulations. That is a tough business, and thank you for taking it on. It's much needed.
Next up, zoning docket item 07623.
Zoning docket 07623 is a request for a zoning change from a SRD suburban two-family residential district to an SB2 suburban pedestrian-oriented corridor business district in the desired neighborhood. The applicant is seeking a zoning change to allow the residential site to be developed with a standard restaurant. The subject property consists of one lot of record, lot 1, that is a residentially sized corner lot that measures 39. I'm sorry, it was supposed to be a rectangular sized corner lot that measures 39 feet in width along Piety Street, 170 feet in width in depth along Industry Street, and measures 6,630 square feet in area. The site is currently vacant, and the 1979 Sanborn map shows that the most recent use was a two-family residence. The property is within SRD suburban two-family residential district that is characterized by low-density residential uses on large lots, and that includes several vacant properties. To the rear of the subject site facing Desire Parkway, there is an SB2 suburban pedestrian-oriented corridor business district that includes the Barney Head Start Center. Although development would benefit this area, the change of zoning to the proposed SB2 district is a spot zone that cannot be justified under the historic non-conforming use policy because the site does not have an established history of commercial use. Additionally, the requested change to an SB2 district is not the most restrictive designation that would allow the proposed restaurant use. Even considering the more restrictive designation, an SB1 district would not meet the necessary zoning change criteria. Furthermore, given there is no history of commercial use, the proposed commercial use is inconsistent with the RLD post-residential low density post-war future land use map designation of the master plan. Therefore, the staffs recommend denial of this request.
Thank you. We have two cards. Is it? Are you the applicant?
Yes,
Okay, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
my name is Lisa Williamson, Pastor Lisa, 2801 Pite Street. And so I saw you guys a couple of weeks ago. We came back up on the docket, share with you guys that this is a community that I grew up in. And we have quite a bit of property over there that it's not being used for anything. My sister here, Beneva, has a great idea. I am going to do some building on the property a little later. But for now, she has a great idea to put up a restaurant, which there are none in the area. But I want Beneva to share her story with you guys.
Hi, good afternoon, greetings. My name is Beneva Njai, 281 Pite Street. The name of the cafe would be Early Bird Cafe, you guys. I'm a native of New Orleans. I grew up in the 9th Ward off of Desire and Higgins Boulevard. I'm a graduate of George Washington Carver High School, class of '81. Before we had Betty Jean Parker swimming pool, my siblings and I swam at Sampson Park swimming pool. We will walk to Bynum's Pharmacy to get something cool to drink in summertime and pick up our prescriptions. However, they are not there anymore. Across the street now is Nord Community Center, which is awesome. I say these things to let you know that this is a community that I know of and where I want to share my dream of opening a sit-down morning and afternoon cafe where you can have a nutritious morning breakfast under the beautiful sun. If you all agree to say yes to change the zoning, it would help and do wonders for the community. It can bring back more life to the community. We can sit down and have breakfast or take a smoothie to go. This is a dream that I had for a very long time and always wanted to give back to my community. There are no places to eat or even to get a snowball near the Desire Estates. When I spoke with some of the residents, they were happy and excited that we would even think about bringing a cafe in the area. This cafe would be a great fit also for the schools, Carver and Delgado, and the business community. It can be one of those places where you say, hey, it's about time somebody opened a cafe in our area. I'm hoping that you can help us and the community make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and I just wanted to add that you heard in the report though, that so the land has always, my father lived on this property as well, but it's always been for residential and not ever for business. But there's a daycare center behind us, which I think the workers there could use a place to eat. And then across the street, as you heard Beneva say, there's the community center that was just built over there as well. And I think on Louisa Street, there is a auto mechanic shop there as well. So there are quite a few SB 52s, I think they're called, in the area. So really need you guys' support on this one so we could continue to do some things to uplift our community.
Thank you. There are no other comment cards. Is there any questions for the applicant or staff?
Corner property? Or is it in the middle of the block?
It's on the corner.
It's on the
And that's a
corner.
bad picture because my lots are always cut and they're always look nice. That is an ugly picture, but anyway, yes, it's a corner lot.
Where is the daycare center? You said it was
The
directly
daycare
behind?
center is behind it. Directly behind it. There used to be a fence line that separated the housing area as well as the projects that used to be there from the housing area from the projects. And right behind this property, where my father and a couple other houses were, is the daycare center. Right behind it.
How long has the daycare center been there?
I've been back home since 17. I think it came up around that time frame.
So the
15, 16, something like that, 2000.
Do we know what the zoning was, if the daycare center has a zoning change or a conditional?
That's
use change?
residential. That's where the housing project was.
Okay, so then it went in, so
Yes, I know that off the top of my head, but I guess your guys could tell you that, but yeah, those were projects there. Residential. Yeah, across the street was also some business, but where the daycare is was residential.
okay.
Well, the land immediately behind the property is rezoned SB2.
Is zoned as what?
SB2,
Okay.
suburban business, suburban pedestrian oriented corridor business district. The land immediately behind the property and adjacent to the property is all zone commercial.
That's good news.
Wow, okay.
I was wrong.
So then what about the land, if it's on the corner behind and over to the left, I guess?
So I don't know if you can.
So to the left of it was
Oh.
commercial. That was where the pharmacy was and the grocery stores and all kinds of other, it was a strip mall there, right across the
Oh,
street,
yeah.
across from it. And then directly across from, so that is Piety. In industry, right, where the pharmacy and all of that Beneva talked about was there was a strip mall. And right directly across from it on Piety as well, is where the new Nord Center is.
I have to surround myself by youth because they seem to have their computers up and
Yes.
operating. I need to stay
Understood.
focused on one thing. So thank you.
Yeah.
And also, could I mention that back in the sixties, it was also a lot of commercial property there too. So they had a bowling alley.
Oh, yes.
They had stores.
And that's strip mall.
Yeah, right there at that strip mall. So back in the sixties, it even had a theater, I think, too.
It did.
So it's almost commercial.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Against your recommendation here. I can't remember if this is from the previous docket item or yours. Would there be additional provisos or variances or waivers?
Zoning changes don't have provisos.
Thank you. Well, I'll make a motion to go against staff recommendation and to go ahead and approve zoning docket 076-23, as there's a history of commercial use there, and especially with the zoning immediately behind and next door all has the commercial zoning, and it's a corner lot, which makes sense in the scheme of planning from my perspective.
And I'll second the motion.
Can I ask a question before we have discussion? We heard that this wasn't the most restrictive zoning. In other words, it could, the restaurant could also be in SB1.
It's not
So-
most restricted.
I just wanted to ask staff if the commission were to go against staff recommendation, would staff then recommend SB1 rather than 2?
A modified approval, is that possible, Stephen?
And I just asked that Commissioner Witry in case the answer affects your motion, if you would consider, if the staff recommends SB1 instead of 2, it's the least intensive use rather than jump up 2 levels.
Yeah,
Jump up one.
I think our preference would be to do SB2 because it's a continuation of the existing adjacent zoning.
So my motion stands.
Any further discussion? If not, we will vote our machines. Congratulations, the zoning docket passes. Next up is zoning docket item 07923.
We're recommending deferral of zoning docket 7923 to the next meeting. This is a request for a conditional use for a wireless telecommunications tower and facility in the C1 General Commercial District. The applicant constructed a wireless telecommunications tower at 100 feet above grade, which is higher than the allowed 65 feet, using a falsified building permit. This triggered the conditional use for the wireless communications tower in accordance with Article 20, Section 20.3.jjj. The staff is requesting a deferral to the November 14th meeting as the applicant has not submitted required documentation, which requires submission of a written instrument signed by all adjoining property owners and duly notarized agreeing to such modification. Therefore, staff is recommending deferral.
Thank you. We don't have any cards. Is the applicant present? Okay.
Is the tower up?
Yes,
So they're requesting permission to put it up or what?
it's an after the fact request.
Okay, well, I mean, can we vote today? I think we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's before you, you can defer it.
That was sort of a rhetorical, but I'll make a motion to deny.
Commissioner Flick second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. If not, we'll vote our machines. The zoning docket is denied. Next up is zoning docket item 08023.
Zoning docket 08023 is a request by City Council Motion M 23393 for a text amendment to the comprehensive zoning ordinance to impose a temporary prohibition on 3 provisions within the temporary parklet standards. Staff recommends deferral to the November 14th, 2023 City Planning Commission meeting to allow more time to review the request in coordination with a new motion submitted to amend parklet regulations.
Thank you. Do you have any cards? No? An applicant present? Okay. If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Commissioner Flick will make a motion for deferral to November 14th.
There's a second.
Commissioner Alexander will second.
There's no further discussion. We'll vote our machines. Our zoning docket is deferred. Next up is zoning docket item 08123.
Zoning docket 8123 is a request for a principal bed and breakfast on this block of South Carrollton Avenue between Bodan and or on Bodan, just a few blocks from Canal Street. The principal consideration when evaluating a principal bed and breakfast is if there are others on the square, as there is a 1 per square limitation. The Department of Safety and Permits confirmed that there are no others on the block and or on the square, I should say. And so therefore, this is allowable potentially under zoning. The staff otherwise doesn't have any concerns and recommends approval with 2 provisos.
Thank you. We have an applicant card for a speaker card for Adam Hicks.
How do you do? My name is Adam Hicks, 4320 South Carrollton Avenue. My wife Lindsay Pick and I run the Ochre Inn, or have run it. I understand you've been able to read, we wrote a fair amount in our application, but we just wanted to reiterate that we are not a short-term rental that is now converting to a bed and breakfast. We had been issued a temporary occupational license in 2020 when we opened this our business. We've got an SBA loan to be a bed and breakfast. We actually cannot be a short-term rental. We're in a zoning where it was a bed and breakfast was a right at that point. We put in a sprinkler and fire system that cost us $50,000 to install to become a bed and breakfast at that point. And then we made a mistake in forgetting to follow up on our license after that. This is because of the timing of when we ended up renewing it. Now this has become one of the biggest mistakes we've ever made, having to go through this whole process. But in our application, we explained how when we applied for it, that was during the aftermath of the ransomware attack on the city. And so it went in and it wasn't added to like our items in one stop. And we also, since we submitted the application, we remembered that we sent in the application for the full business license and just never got anything back from revenue. Possibly because of the ransomware attack. We're not sure about that, but it was COVID and we had a hospitality business and we just forgot about it from there. We have been essentially paying sales taxes because all of our bookings pretty much come through Airbnb and VRBO, which remit them. So through that whole time, we started this renewal, or as we thought it would be, of our own accord. It wasn't our own accord, not because we got kicked off, anything. If we'd started it a few months earlier, we wouldn't have had to go through this process. We've been operating according to the bed and breakfast requirements since we opened in 2020. Our neighbors, unfortunately, were not able to be here today to support us. We thought they were going to be, but our neighbors on both sides have expressed support for us. The only question we had was about the item number one, the proviso number one that was listed. We weren't sure quite exactly what that meant or how that would affect us. I'm hoping maybe somebody can explain that in a little bit more detail in response, but other than that, we hope that you grant our request. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can staff answer that one question on the first proviso?
Yeah, so proviso number one is to, in general, after the city council approves a conditional use by ordinance, the planning commission stamps plans that are generally the same as what was originally submitted, but sometimes they're updated to show compliance with the ordinance itself. So what this does is it says, before anything further happens, this process needs to be completed on the post-approval side by us simply stamping plans that comport with the ordinance. So it's really just kind of the procedural stuff associated with the permit.
So Mr. Kroll, that's pretty much a ministerial type of.
That's right.
Okay.
Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff?
So the second proviso just kind of restates the use standards that apply to all principal bed and breakfasts. So it just takes the regulations that already exist in the zoning ordinance and kind of restates them in the ordinance specific for this, this approval. And so if, 10 years down the line, anyone's sort of wondering what the permissions were at the time of this approval, the ordinance granting the conditional use will include that information.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion for, well, I would have liked to hear from the youngest member of the applicants, but
really?
maybe, yeah, I was gonna say, maybe on second.
I'm sure I'll be happy to oblige you.
Well, I can't believe that we haven't heard from either him or her already. So my motion's for approval. And with the compliment that for the applicant trying to do things right and being transparent and not hiding the bacon like we have seen from some other applicants in STR land. So my motion is for approval in accordance with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Fickle, second. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
I'm gonna go ahead and support. I want to make note that I'm still dealing with the paperwork from the cyber attack to find out on permits have been closed, if certificate of occupancies have been issued. And it's still a mess to this day. And that was about 3 years ago, 4 years ago even. So I just want to make record of that, that people that are trying to use One Stop Shop, it's a great tool, but there's a lot of information that got lost and has been really difficult to navigate after the fact.
If there's no further discussion, we'll vote our machines. Oh, yep, zoning docket passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wait, you didn't? Did it for you?
Yeah.
There it is. It's showing up on my side.
It's your magic. I guess because of where it's at.
Yep. Okay, next zoning docket item is subdivision docket 13523.
All right. This is a subdivision to consolidate these two lots that form the corner of General Meyer and Michael Street. That this is being done in conjunction with the expansion of an existing childcare facility into kind of the rear unit. Technically, what this does is it changes the lot frontage of the lot from one street to another. That's really only a very narrow technical thing. It doesn't change the as-built condition of the site. It doesn't affect how it's used in any significant or meaningful way, and therefore the staff finds this subdivision to be acceptable and recommends approval.
Thank you. We have one applicant card for Nick Kendall.
Hello again, Nick Kindle, 4103 Annunciation Street. I'm the Director of Facilities with Agenda for Children. I'm here on behalf of the property owner. I think Stephen kind of covered it, and so we're supportive of the staff's request, and we're looking forward for your support as well. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Commissioner Flick will make a motion for approval subdivision docket 13523.
36.
3623.
35 for this.
Wait, I'm looking at it wrong.
13523. Tentative approval subject to one proviso.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll speak second. I've always wanted this second cuddly bear. You know.
One second, folks. Machines are not working.
Your way to read that.
Okay. So we'll move forward with this, with subdivision docket, and then we'll reset the machines. We've all voted our machines. So the subdivision docket passes. Congratulations. Next up is zoning subdivision docket 13623.
This is an application that we are, as staff, are requesting deferral on. It basically combines a gas station site at the corner of Jackson and Claiborne with two residentially zoned lots behind it. Combining the lots at this point kind of puts the cart before the horse, because the zoning that is needed for what is proposed here, which is ultimately the expansion of the gas station, is not in place, and that's a separate process. So we're working with the applicant's architect to kind of make sure they understand the sequencing of things, and then we'll come back with this at the November meeting. So again, we're requesting deferral to November 14th.
Thank you. Is there an applicant present? There are no comment cards. If not, I'm looking for a motion from the commission.
Commissioner Flick will make a motion for deferral of subdivision docket 13623 to the November 14th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Still not working. Is there any further discussion? If not, we will vote our machines. Question. Subdivision docket is deferred. Next up is subdivision docket 14323.
Commissioner Alexander will recuse herself from docket 14323.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
subdivision docket 14323 is an action required so that the subject street rights of way can be dedicated back to the city in conjunction with a corresponding property disposition request that will be presented to the City Planning Commission at its November 14th meeting. These rights of way were acquired by Hanno back in the 1930s or 40s, and now Hanno wants to dedicate them back to the city. The staff report references an exchange with some property in the B.W. Cooper community. That was our understanding when this first came online to us, or at least to me, back in August or so, or maybe even farther than that. Since then, staff has learned that there is no exchange, with the B.W. Cooper properties at all. This is just a rededication of the rights. That's what it is. That's all it is. There's no involvement with the B.W. Cooper properties because there's no exchange that needs to take place where originally it was thought that an exchange was needed. This request was reviewed by the Planning Advisory Committee on August 16th, 2023, and a motion to approve the street dedication was made, seconded, and unanimously approved, subject to further review by the City Planning Commission and the Department of Real Estate and Records, and the CPC staff, which recommends approval of subdivision docket 14323, subject to 5 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant present? We do have one comment card.
Hi, I'm Ashley Tizzolo with Elkins PLC. We represent Hanno, just here to support the staff's recommendation and answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff or the applicant? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Commissioner Flick will make a motion for approval of subdivision docket 14323, subject to 5 provisos.
Is there a second?
Brown will second.
If there's no further discussion, we'll vote our machines. Docket passes with tentative approval. Next up is property acquisition 00223.
Property acquisition 0023 is the consideration of the acquisition by the city of New Orleans of a roughly triangular portion of Duncan Plaza that is currently undeveloped next to the Heel Garage. The city of New Orleans historically owned the entirety of Duncan Plaza, but in 1955 sold a section of the site to the Louisiana State Building Authority. This proposed acquisition is part of a land swap effort between the city and state officials to trade equal value land so the city can acquire the entirety of Duncan Plaza. In exchange, the city is in the process of a property disposition, PD 00123, that will be heard next, to allow the state of Louisiana to acquire the land on which the civil court building is located and a portion of the land area behind the courthouse on Poydras Street on the rear side of City Hall between Loyola Avenue and LaSalle Street. Staff finds the proposed property acquisition meets the following criteria. The property is undeveloped and is needed as a land asset for either the site of a future city hall or other local jurisdictional use. The master plan supports the acquisition, and the proposal meets the criteria of the City Planning Commission administration rules, policies, and procedures for property acquisition. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the proposed property acquisition subject to 2 provisos.
Thank you. Is an applicant present? We don't have, do we have any? Okay. Gotcha.
Hi, I'm Scott Whitaker, here on behalf of the applicant. My address is 909 Poydras Street, Suite 3150, New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm also here on behalf of the applicant for the next docket number 123. As the staff report mentioned, these 2 agenda items work in tandem with each other. They're a property exchange pursuant to which the city of New Orleans would get full ownership of Duncan Plaza. This is a transaction that's been discussed between the city and the state for over 10 years in various iterations over the years. The city and the state have now come to terms about the exchange of properties of equal value. And the staff report lays it out well. I'm here to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you. Are there no other comment cards or any questions for the applicant or staff? If not, we are looking for a motion.
So Steve moves approval.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Alexander will second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote our machines. The property acquisition has moved forward. Next up is property disposition 00123.
Property disposition 001-23 is a request by the city of New Orleans to sell the land that encompasses the Civil District Court building and a portion of the land on the rear side of City Hall on Poydras Street between Loyola Avenue and LaSalle Street. The state is not acquiring the Civil District Courthouse building as part of this land swap. The city of New Orleans will continue to own and use the improvements that sit on the land. Only the land underneath the improvements would be sold to the state and then leased back to the city of New Orleans. The use of the existing building is not slated to change at this time. The property disposition is part of a land swap with the state of Louisiana for land that is part of Duncan Plaza to enable the city to acquire the entirety of the land that makes up the plaza, which was just heard as property acquisition 00123. 00223. Staff finds that the request meets the following criteria. The property disposition is consistent with the criteria of approval as provided in administrative rules, policies, and procedures of the City Planning Commission. The property disposition is consistent with the master plan, and the property disposition enables the city to swap land with the state of Louisiana to own the entirety of Duncan Plaza. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to 2 provisos.
Thank you. We have one card, Scott Whitaker. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? If not, we are looking for a motion.
Move approval. Commissioner Flickel, second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote our machines. Property disposition moves forward. Next is pathways to removing obstacles to housing, pro-housing grant. We have
Good afternoon. At the last City Planning Commission hearing on October tenth, the Department of Safety and Permits and the City Planning Commission staff provided you and the public general information regarding the pro-housing grant application we are in the process of finalizing. The deadline to submit this grant was recently extended to November sixth. However, we are aiming to submit this grant by this Friday, October 27th. On October 12th, we posted the draft application on the City Planning Commission website for the public to view. This public hearing is a chance to engage the commissioners and the public about this opportunity and receive input regarding the posted draft application. However, no action is needed as a result of this presentation. It is simply for informational purposes only. The purpose of this grant is to fund proposals that will result in the removal of barriers to the development and preservation of affordable housing. The grant allows for planning activities that support affordable housing production and preservation, including developing or updating housing plans, community development strategies, updating permitting and process procedures and timelines, creating anti-displacement policies and prevention measures, as well as developing proposals for preserving existing housing stock from threats such as climate change, natural disasters, and expiring or loss of affordable units. HUD is expecting to award $85 million to approximately 20 awardees in the $1 million to $10 million range. The staffs at CPC and Department of Safety and Permits are proposing 3 focus areas for the development and preservation of affordable housing through this grant opportunity. First is the completion and community engagement of the ongoing housing opportunity study. Second is creating and implementing the Healthy Homes program diversion and resources process for tenants and landlords. And third is establishing an affordable housing office of services within the Department of Safety and Permits. The first is the housing opportunity study. On August 21st, 2019, Mayor Cantrell tasked CPC to write a housing study that identifies zoning barriers to the production and preservation of affordable housing and the city's comprehensive zoning ordinance. Though the work for this study has been underway pre-pandemic, there is still much work to do to bring the study to completion. The funding will be used to support engaging expertise to complete the study, conducting data collection and analysis for providing informed recommendations on zoning and land use policies, and developing a robust community engagement process. The second is the Healthy Homes Program Diversion Action Plan. The Healthy Homes Program Ordinance was adopted on November 2nd, 2022, and amended in May of 2023 to provide an effective date. The purpose of the program is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public by ensuring persons who reside in Orleans Parish occupy safe and habitable dwellings. Through this program, rental property must be registered with the city and receive a certificate of compliance. Dwellings must meet basic requirements for habitability, and there are measures in place securing the rights of lessees to report violations without fear of retaliation. However, there are concerns that when implemented, residents will be displaced when units are deemed non-compliant and uninhabitable despite the tenant protections. Data is severely lacking to show how many of these units are in need of some sort of remediation to be in compliance with the ordinance. But it is anticipated there will be a significant number of units that will fall into this category given the age of the housing stock in New Orleans. This funding opportunity provides the Department of Safety and Permits with the resources to obtain this data and set up a Healthy Homes Diversion Action Plan. Once we have an idea of the need, we will use the data to coordinate with partner agencies to create pathways to compliance, focusing on weatherization of units to reduce utility costs and eliminate health hazards. And the third is Office of Affordable Housing Services.
Recognizing the need for making permitting more efficient, the Department of Safety and Permits will use funding from this grant to create an Office of Affordable Housing Services within the zoning division of the Department of Safety and Permits. Streamlined permitting and review policies will help shorten development time and increase the supply of affordable housing units. Many property owners face hurdles in rehabbing or developing their properties while navigating the complicated permitting system. This office intends to address this with a targeted approach to prioritize our mom and pop property owners with technical assistance in overcoming these hurdles and by providing an office where questions can be answered and capacity building resources are provided. Today's presentation is a second public hearing and provides general information about the grant and is a platform for feedback on the draft grant application. All comments must be submitted before the end of the day on October 25th, 2023.
Thank you. We have two cards, one from Monique Blossom.
Good afternoon, Monique Blossom, Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center, 1340 Poydras. We are pleased to support this grant application. As the proposal states, the ongoing housing affordability crisis in New Orleans has a striking racial dimension. These disparities exist due to the city's lasting legacy of housing policies intentionally created to deprive our Black communities and other communities of color of the same housing opportunities as their white counterparts. We will soon see the restoration of HUD's affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, which will require the city of New Orleans to do more than simply not discriminate, but to take meaningful actions to overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities. So it will be imperative moving forward that we look for opportunities like this pro-housing grant to help develop programs and policies that affirmatively further fair housing. And like with the Healthy Homes Diversion Action Plan programs that will help ensure that all renters in New Orleans have safe and healthy homes to live in. So I commend the CPC staff and Department of Safety and Permit staff for their work on this proposal. And I thank them for the initiative and we are pleased to support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Leah LeBlanc.
Hello, my name is Leah LeBlanc. I live on Oak Street and I work for the Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance and Housing NOLA. We just want to express our support for this application. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other, wait, there's one more comment card. Megan Ebanks.
Hello, my name is Megan Ebanks. I am a graduate student at Jackson State University and I am a lifelong resident of New Orleans. So according to the housing grant application, there's 46.5 households that consist of people living alone and 26.8 compromised people aged 65 years and older. It's imperative that a portion of the grant funds be allocated to the strategic rezoning of residential areas. This will facilitate the construction of ADUs tailored for families with aging parents and tiny homes designed for single individuals. The rezoning should also include the subdivision of lot sizes to accommodate these housing options. Such measures will address the unique housing needs of these specific demographic groups and promote more inclusive, efficient, and sustainable urban development in our city. So I have three questions that I would like to pose to you guys, just for consideration of the application. So how will the grant funds be utilized to promote the development of accessory dwelling units and tiny homes? New Orleans is a very old city with an older housing stock. The Healthy Homes program seems to be pushing out landlords and decreasing the amount of housing stock instead of helping it. What specific guidelines and criteria does the city plan to follow to assess whether homes are up to code within the context of the Healthy Homes program? In cases where a home is found not up to code, what strategies and support mechanisms are in place to assist property owners, particularly those who may not be creditworthy, to obtain low interest loans or grants? And how does the city plan to address these concerns promptly to prevent the reduction of the housing stock and displacement of its residents? And lastly, how does the city intend to utilize or consider the pro-housing grant to address the issue of vacant lots and blighted properties efficiently and effectively, particularly in the areas like the Lower Ninth Ward and New Orleans East, as a means to facilitate both nonprofit and for-profit developers in acquiring affordable properties for the construction of tiny homes, multifamily homes, and single-family affordable homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to pass it? Either one.
Are you all able to comment? I know that with ADUs, we were not successful even a year ago to encourage that motion to be passed, and there was a lot of discussion about that. Ms. Butler, do you have some comments, or Berg?
I just wanted to comment on the zoning reform piece that she was referring to. This is going to be part of the comprehensive housing study. We couldn't propose programs such as an ADU program as part of this grant because of the approval mechanisms that have to go before you and council. So we can't propose something that we don't know if it will be eventually approved. But what the housing study will do is look at not just ADUs, but all zoning reforms that we could implement to help incentivize affordable housing and just housing in general, including bulk and yard standards that she referred to.
I have a question in regard, do you have something?
Oh, I was just going to add, and doing it through the lens of our historical zoning patterns that have been formed throughout New Orleans history and segregation policies that have resulted in neighborhoods that are zoned single family, but also don't allow other housing types. So, and it's also interesting that the FHA just passed last week new rule that you can now use ADU income for qualifying for a mortgage. So there's a lot of movement on that, but that will all be part of what Rachel had mentioned coming through the community engagement process to talk about these things and where is it appropriate and how can we move that forward.
In terms of the Healthy Homes program, there's a mention of properties being up to code. We know that there's a lot of properties that are not up to code, but I think the intent is it to comply with the checklist, one of the ordinance that was approved by Mayor Cantrell a few months ago, or is it going to be something a bit more comprehensive than that really addresses moving forward and what we talked about earlier about sustainability and housing resiliency?
So I think the idea is to dive into this, to look at all of that. We are looking at the Healthy Homes Ordinance as something that is very vital and important, but with our eyes open, knowing that we are going to run into issues either with zoning or code compliance, and ultimately wanting to bring housing into more affordable for the tenants, but just, we're living in a city with lots of natural disasters. How can we weatherize? How can we do all of the programs? So it's really going to be getting our head around that. And it's interesting that it's a good segue. So as we were going through the grant writing process, one of the things that we started talking about with the Office of Community Development and some of our other partners is creating perhaps a low interest loan or grant program in exchange for affordable housing. But how can we help service? How can we use this best and use this as a jump board to get more of that? So that one of the concerns is that we would just be hammering down on people for not having properties that are up to code without providing the resources.
Thank you.
I have a question. This kind of mimics something we talked about the last time you came here. It's again about the partnership. When I think about what you shared in terms of the application of low interest loans or grant programs, thinking about the owner occupied rehab program that comes out of OCD. Now that there's been a little bit more progression here, what is the strategy for not duplicating efforts or learning those lessons of where the limitations of existing programs are, so that way those errors aren't redundant?
As part of the grant, we are charged with focusing on low income residents. And so the way that we are crafting the grant application is to really focus. Rachel in the script had mentioned mom and pop, but really focusing on property owners of color that are in some of these older neighborhoods that have had disinvestment. So I think not duplicating efforts, but being targeted on our geography and who it is that we're going to be reaching out. So we've got several commitment letters for some of these partners that we talked about last time to partner with us. One of them is On the Crescent through Housing NOLA. Yes, so to, and that's kind of where the capacity building is coming out of as well. So hopefully it would grow to expand more, but initially we would be very targeted on those areas in neighborhood. This grant isn't enough to cover everything. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you so much.
I had one quick question. We received a study about transit-oriented communities. Is that information also going to be hopefully married with this one as far as where we look for opportunities where there aren't any now, but might be when the opportunities are there for more transit?
I know a little bit about it, but I think I'll defer to my CPC partners who are a little bit more.
So I think the answer is yes, absolutely. I think both, there is an overlap with both of them about, identifying and taking advantage of transit corridors as a place where we should be focusing our efforts on creating housing. That is certainly a recommendation from the TOC study. There's certainly a foundation of the housing opportunity study that we have been working on that will be kind of put in the hands of the contractor that would be hired through the funds that could finish that study. So absolutely, there is a direct connection between the two.
Again, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Comments. One program that really worked well post Katrina was the bond program with the city of New Orleans, and it really was able to activate a lot of individuals to get into home ownership. And so that was just a well-run program, which I like to comment on when those come to play. And really try to talk to your council person about the ADU.
Plan for 2024 proposes expenditures of a little under $13 million, constituting an increase of 4.1% from its adopted budget for 2023. The plan proposes maintaining the property tax millage of 17.12 mils from 2023, which is projected to provide a net revenue of just over $12 million. The additional revenues are expected to come from a mixture of event proceeds, interest, and banner deposits earned. Expenses for the district would be divided among the same 8 categories that have been used in previous years, which cover the agency's operational divisions, capital purchases and improvements, and debt service for previously issued bonds. 7 of 8 of the budget categories would increase from the amounts approved for 2023. The changes to the amounts for each expenditure category result from minor adjustments to particular budget line items, the shifting of priorities within certain divisions of the agency, and the completion of and starting on new projects. The 2024 Downtown Development District budget and work plan includes a number of elements that generally address the goals and strategies of the master plan. In addition, the work plan proposes projects that implement specific actions called for by the master plan. The City Planning Commission staff is confident that the Downtown Development District will continue to serve as an effective conveyor of downtown stakeholders, and City Planning Commission staff looks forward to working with the Downtown Development District and other city departments on planning projects that impact the central business district.
Thank you. We don't have any applicant cards, but you want to come up and speak, Mr. Barber?
Good afternoon, Commission, staff, as well as members of the public. Davon Barbour, President and CEO of the Downtown Development District. First of all, I'm here today really to seek your support of the budget 2024 budget and master plan. We concur with the staff's recommendation and respectfully request that you also approve the plan for consistency with the city's master plan. Just as a reminder, DDD is the nation's first property-based assessment district. We have worked tirelessly providing a number of services within downtown, including supplemental cleaning, around-the-clock hospitality, capital improvements, marketing, economic development, and more. We are not a replacement for city government, but rather we work in partnership with city government, working with a number of departments. And, I'm really proud of the work that we have accomplished working alongside the administration. Particularly when we think about climate change, for example, New Orleans is front and center. And so working through the Department of Public Works and a cooperative endeavor agreement, we are funding stormwater improvements throughout downtown. On the economic development front, we're also funding in partnership a strategic plan for the bio district. We are also working to fund dedicated code enforcement within downtown. And so all of these strategies are really meant to position downtown New Orleans for greatness. We cannot do this work alone. We work in partnership with the public sector, private sector, and others. And so downtowns all across the country are very much in a recovery, but we've embraced a simple strategy. One, to ensure that we have a vibrant and attractive public realm. Two, that we have a safe environment. And three, that we have reliable infrastructure. This work plan and budget is dedicated to that, and we believe that we'll move downtown and the entire city forward. Staff is here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Barber?
Yeah, I have a few questions. I was going through and I was looking at the slide on like the hotel market occupancy. It seems like it is pretty much stable out since 22, but is there an increase in like actual hotel stocks of rooms since that time frame?
So great question. So what's included in the market plan really speaks to the vibrancy of the hotel market tourism. Certainly since the global pandemic, we are still recovering. For example, in terms of foot traffic, we're at about 82% recovered on the hospitality front. There's still a lot more work to go. We know the number of our hotels are investing right now to prepare for Super Bowl. That is a major event that this community will host. We have seen a number of short-term rentals as well proposed within downtown. We'd like to see more development again, but again, we understand that we have to provide that roadmap. This strategy, I go back to what we talked about in terms of this three-pronged approach: safe streets, attractive environment, and infrastructure. When those pillars are addressed, we know the private investment will flow. And so we have to do this. We hear loud and clear from our hospitality partners the importance of ensuring that Canal Street is safe and attractive, that we have working lights throughout the district, that our infrastructure is robust. So we believe with those investments, we will continue to see hotel occupancy increase.
Just want to say thank you for the report in general. Having metrics is incredibly useful, and you don't know what you can't measure. And we've seemed to have measured every aspect of downtown down to where they live and come from. So I think it's really important and critical information for addressing who's using and living in the space. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would also just encourage members of the public, at the end of 2022, we started producing quarterly market reports. Those are available to the public. So we measure the labor market, the performance of the real estate market, tourism. And as you pointed out, we have to know how we're performing so that we can adjust accordingly.
Thank you. Appreciate your very thorough report. You might have mentioned this and I might have not heard it. The $200,000 in capital purchases, what was that for?
We are purchasing vehicles within downtown.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess in our world here at Capitol, we think of things that are 10 years or more. So I was not. Okay. Thank you.
Just another question. So after reviewing it, I noticed that the objectives in 2024 plans on including DBEs. Can you speak to how you plan on incorporating that for, new RFPs that'll be coming out too? And will that happen prior to those bids going out?
Sure. So that's a great question. DDD has always focused on DBE participation. In fact, we have a 35% DBE participation goal. And so that's been incorporated in all of our vending since our creation. And we do produce reports on an annual basis. That will continue in the coming year, particularly when we think about the revitalization of downtown. Included in this report, you saw a map that pointed out the economic disparities within the city where we outlined HUD disadvantaged communities. We're very mindful of the importance of creating opportunity for all in the city. And so from a contracting standpoint, we have worked alongside the city in terms of participating in reverse trade shows. When we think about real estate development opportunities in downtown, promoting land ownership and development particularly from an equity standpoint, that's important. We were proud to serve as a presenting sponsor for the Urban Land Institute Real Estate Diversity Initiative. So these are just some of the countless examples in terms of our work promoting DBE participation.
Any other questions or comments?
Hi, thanks. Thank you also for me. Maybe I missed it in here, but anything you could update us about the stormwater program that was funded last year?
Absolutely. So through a cooperative endeavor agreement, the Downtown Development District is funding this stormwater management plan in partnership with the city. We're contributing $5 million towards this effort that would fund underground improvements up to 19 blocks within downtown. The Department of Public Works is serving as the project manager for this initiative. Design work began earlier this year. In fact, a DBE is leading that design work, working through the Department of Public Works and also Procurement Department. We believe the city will let bids for construction at the end of the year. Construction for the system upgrades would begin post Mardi Gras 2024 in the first quarter.
All right, thank you. One other question about that. Is there any work being done to tie that in with some of the work being done just outside of downtown? Let's see, that would be.
Sure, that's a great question. I've had a number of meetings with partners at the Friends of Lafitte Greenway and others. So we very much are mindful of that. We're mindful of the impact, and so making sure that these system upgrades can work in tandem and in partnership. I would certainly defer to my partners at the Department of Public Works for their engineering expertise, but very much those conversations have been at the table.
All right, thank you.
There are no other comments. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Do we have to vote? Yep.
Yeah, we do.
So we are looking for a motion.
Commissioner Flick will make a motion for approval of the proposed 2024 budget and work plan for the DDD.
For a second.
A second. Sure.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll go to our machines. The work plan and budget passes. Congratulations. Next up is extension request for zoning docket 01522.
This is a request for an extension of the deadline to approve final development plans in conjunction with the zoning docket. Normally these things are handled administratively, but in this case, the deadline for doing that, for approving the plans, I should say, has already passed. And so this has to be considered by the Planning Commission. The staff has no objection to the extension.
We have one comment card from the applicant, Ms. Missy Quigley.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Missy Quigley, 800 Barone with Sherman Strategies. Nice to see all of you. We were approved for this conditional use for a hotel over 10,000 square feet in the Marigny in July of 22. We have been with HDLC for 3 years. We have been to the ARC 9 times, the HDLC 7 times, and the City Council 2 times. We've just been working through the design to get their buy-in, to get the neighborhood buy-in, and we're finally getting ready to go. We're on the consent agenda for HDLC next month. So in accordance with CZO section 4.3.H.2, we ask you to give us an extension of 1 year to submit site plans for approval by the executive director. And we have the architect here if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer any as well.
Are there no other cards? Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? Do we need to vote? Yeah, we need a vote for an extension.
I was gonna make the motion for the extension in case we need to vote on it. I think we do, right? So I move for the extension for 1 year.
And I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Not, we'll vote our machines.
Okay.
The extension request is granted.
Thank y'all so much.
Last up are subdivision ratifications.
And these are a list of subdivisions that the staff believes are eligible for administrative approval under the subdivision regulations, and you as a commission would be ratifying and approving that decision.
Hard to get things through on that.
There are no comment cards. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Alexander will second.
If there's no further discussion, we'll vote our machines. And subdivisions are ratified. That concludes, is there an addition?
Yeah, I have one more question for you all. We had talked several weeks ago about the master plan hearing, and you all had suggested that you would like to have it on December the 5th in the evening. Council chambers are booked by Nord. That's their regular meeting time. So we have a choice. We can meet earlier that day at 1:30, which would give us 2.5 hours before Nord starts, or we can move it to a different day. I think we had talked about the 19th, which is the Tuesday after our December meeting. Or we can do another day. I know this is probably not the best place for everyone to check their calendars and get consensus, but if you could do so and get back to me, say by the close of day tomorrow, then we can go ahead and get everything set up for that meeting.
Okay.
So the 5th is, we could meet at 1:30. But we'd only be able to meet for a couple hours because Nord comes in at 4 o'clock. The 19th, I believe is available. But if there is another date that works better for you all, we're certainly open to that as well. And I can check with the council staff and see that. What I'm going to do as I leave here, I'm going to go talk to Paul just to verify what dates are open, and I can shoot you an email once I get back up to the office.
How long shall we expect the meeting to last? How much time would you like for us to plan?
So we had talked, when we talked about it last, we had kind of anticipated that we wouldn't be able to get through all 100 or so in one single meeting, and that we would meet once, see how many we got through, and then kind of make a decision at that point whether we would attach them to our one of our January regular meetings, or whether we would need a special meeting sometime in January to address the rest of them.
Can I make a recommendation that we plan for December 5th at 1:30 and see how far we get, and then adjust after that?
Can we meet earlier than 1:30 on December 5th?
I can check. I think there may be something scheduled at 10, but I'll double check.
Even 12:30 or 1 or 12?
I can check.
Just to try to get things rolling since we're all right here, and then we can decide after that. Is that enough time for staff or?
I think we'll be ready with all the reports and everything at any of those dates. So it's just a matter of being able to find a room that we can meet in, and
We do know that this room is available at least for 3 hours
Yeah.
per se. What do y'all think?
What I do with that is a placeholder and then I can shoot you some other dates and see if that works better for you all.
Get things rolling.
Yep,
Okay,
work backwards from there.
all right,
Thank you.
excellent. Thank you.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's second.
Roll with him.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.